in the toss. Took a loss, that's your loss. Had to get my point across.
You accommodate a lot of thoughts. You accommodate 100 thoughts, whether it's in religion, whether it's in politics, whether it's in economics, whether it's in anything. But you also accommodate those very thoughts which are cancer to the other thoughts. The cabal which was so strongly holding all these narratives and now getting called out by nationalist Muslims, nationalist Hindus, nationalist Christians, nationalist Sikhs, is now that kind of churn is happening. So I'm hopeful, but like I said, state's been too weak, or rather it is pretended to show it's too weak. There should be no compromise as far as the borders.
In everything, it's not just psyops. If we don't even have a police force that is effective, right? So the state is definitely weak. That's all. And you mentioned deep state.
The policymakers, right? The policymakers, yeah. It's been.
So deep state exists in it's not the nationalistic state that is in that situation of being deep state. That is my understanding so far.
No, I mean everyone's interpretation is different. I mean, I would talk about the brains, who implement the whatever happens on the ground and how you're putting up your narrative, how you're putting up your viewpoint. Where has all that been? It's just individual effort. You look at nationalists across the spectrum in India, they feel like orphans. I mean, there is no ecosystem, there is no one, and these are guys doing it just for the love of the motherland. So I think that is where India needs to ace up and step up, But I think it's happening. I think internet has provided that door, and hopefully you will see an ecosystem come up in our lifetimes where it gets its due, and we can stop this onslaught of these pan-nationalistic ideologies and enemy states disguising themselves as these neutral journalistic platforms, whereas that anything that will be anti-India under the garb of anti-current government, they will have a shot at it.
That's something extremely interesting that you've brought forth. I've noticed that everything that is, everybody's got a right to political views. It's a very enlightened thing to have in a democracy, to have opposition views and diversity in terms of understanding. But this, under the garb of being against the current establishment, has translated maximally to being anti-national. And I'm just worried that that you have to pick a side, and we're becoming extremely binary, and with so much heterogeneity we cannot afford to become the US at this time. So
no, I mean, see, India needs a strong state, because the fluidity is the essence of the civilization that India is, the Indic civilization. That's not going to go. Duality of thought is what drives this civilization, which is 5,000 years old, one of the oldest in the world. But, here is a beautiful and a cruel paradox. The very strength of this civilization is also its biggest weakness. Because this duality of thought, which is so ingrained in your conscious, you accommodate a lot of thoughts. You accommodate 100 thoughts, whether it's in religion, whether it's in politics, whether it's in economics, whether it's in anything. But you also accommodate those very thoughts which are cancer to the other thoughts. So that is something which that churn needs to happen. You can't say, okay, I'll allow these 100 thoughts, and one of them thoughts, two, three of those thoughts will say, oh, but we seek annihilation of this entire system. So you can't say, oh, but I need to be very generous and I need to make you a part. No, you cannot have separatism. You cannot have communism which wants to balkanize you and say ki ye bhi isko bhi rakh lo. So I think that kind of understanding is what the youngsters need to understand, that yes, it will always remain by default a democratic setup. Nobody needs lectures from the West. Nobody needs lectures from anyone. You pick up the history of India. Refuge has been given thousands of years back before they even had this, this dark ages ke baad, their enlightenment age. But yes, balance lana zaruri hai ki needs to be a balance. Like, problem ye bhi hai ki so much of brainwashing has happened to the urban centers schooling mein. I was talking once to someone, and this weird thing of, why do our soldiers fight? Their soldiers also die. And, the guy who's trying to kill the soldier. And I just asked a simple question. I said, is the person who will break into your CCTV guarded society, luxury society, is he on the same footing as your watchman? If he kills your watchman and comes in, would you have the same kind of sympathy? She said, no. I said, it's the same. No, It can't be the same. The thief coming in is your enemy. The watchman is saving you. So watchman's your hero. Why does it change for someone who's actually putting his life at stake for you on the border? For that time, it becomes same. The guy who's trying to break inside your home and the guy who's saving your home is the same, right? So I think a lot of deconditioning needs to happen there.
Yes. Absolutely, I think that's the appropriate word, deconditioning. We have been conditioned, and I think our education system, which is very broken, it's not that we can just point out that instead of Ashfaqullah Khan, you make Akbar the Great. Instead of a freedom fighter who's protected this motherland, you make an invader who's married hundreds of women and has harems of 1,000 more, and kills and breaks temples and kills all of the infidels, but then does one good thing and he's regarded as Akbar. But then you ignore all of the Muslim freedom fighters who have given their lives for the nation, whose soil carries their blood. So that's something that has caused a lot of confusion, I believe. But in addition to just the whitewashing, there's also no way to rationally analyze. I think we teach children a lot of what to think rather than how to think. So where you draw that analogy for that person, not everybody's going to be so lucky to have a counter like yours, right? People will not encounter you saying these rational things and making them think in that direction. It's the schools that should have done that, taught them how to think and weigh different perspectives. So,
like I said, the state has failed most of India's nationalists. But the fact is, India's nationalists don't fail India's state or India. So that's a selfless thing they do.
Very well said. All right, so let's move to current affairs. Point 2, something on a lighter note. I understand, I don't think you've done a video on this, but I know it's quite an interesting topic that went down and has suddenly disappeared in terms of conversation. So why don't we rake it up again? Kohli versus BCCI.
Something lighter. We've been talking a lot of political, even on my show and also.
Right. So who do you support there?
No, I mean, it's not a person based. I mean, of course, he is the greatest batsman right now in the world in the last 1 decade. It's just that, he somehow never realized that he was not a good enough T20 and one-day captain. And but because of surrounding himself with yes men like Shastri and whoever he's ever had, nobody ever told him the truth. And I don't know, sadly we have this whole hero worship thing in India across, whether it is cricketers, actors. You try to tell his fans, listen, I agree that he is one of the best test captain cricketers that India has ever had, or possibly test cricket has had. So he's a great test captain, but he's a very average ODI and T20 captain, and that you can see from his record, you can see from his 8 years of trophyless IPL, and that's okay, you should leave it. But then to think that I will hold on to the one-day captaincy, I'll leave the T20 captaincy. And if you look at all the top 10 teams of the world, nobody ever does that. Either you completely leave the white ball cricket and then you focus on test, or you have the white ball cricket and the one, it's bifurcated that way. So that I showed his lack of understanding of, this is how things are. And that was because here was a man so pampered by BCCI and every demand was given into, and he had a history of, in his initial days being a little hot-headed. I remember the coach of RCB, Ray Jennings, a lot of years back said that when he was starting off, I told him, you practice this. And he said, I know everything. Of course, he was able to get that down, and all that also people could take all that kind of aggression on all because he was providing results. But a little bit of toning down of aggression was needed, because not many people don't forget, when Harsha Bhogle for a year and a half was not a part of the commentary panel, there was a lot that basically had been said by some current cricketers, I mean Kohli and all, which had led to basically, harsh decisions being taken against Harsha, who had made some critical comments, which is the right of every free Indian, right? So then it's the same thing here as well. I mean, it was obvious to him. So then to kind of make this whole thing, hold a press conference, take on Ganguly and say that, I was never told and all that. I mean, come on, it's a very basic thing. Even cricket lovers like us who watch it know that this is what it was supposed to be. And Rohit has been an exceptional, T20 captain, 5 IPL trophies in the most competitive and most expensive T20 league is not a fluke. So I think for me, it was very clear that where the problem was in it.
So we'll say Kohli. You are beside BCCI side, Dada.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about BCCI and him, but no, but it's just that is where I, was viewing the whole thing from.
No, so could it have been handled better, both by Kohli? Of course, you mentioned how it could have been handled better by Kohli, but by BCCI themselves. Do you think that there was more they could do, or did they actually do it right, and then the communication around that is misinterpreted, or what?
No, obviously their communication was abysmal too. I mean, here you're looking at one of the world's most richest sporting bodies. It is the most richest cricketing sporting body. It's one of the world's richest sporting bodies, yeah. And they can't get a bloody communication mail properly and solve it behind closed doors and get on with it. So of course, BCCI is also not known for its great professionalism or the way they go about things, right? So of course there's a lot of revenue that they generate, and it percolates, and lakhs of people earn out of it. So that we need to have that sense of balance. So credit where due. But yeah, I mean, this is a basic thing they should have done right. I mean, kindergarten things would be done in a much more professional and balanced way. So obviously Kohli has a thing there, but it's not that the other side was also all innocent and they didn't know that what they were getting into.
So is there a longer term fallout of this? Do you see that there's a trust deficit, or there's going to be more politics in the dressing room? Do you see that there's a long term fallout between?
No, I don't actually see that, because people don't understand this. When I criticize the fact that he's not a good T20 and this, but for me he still remains the best batsman of the generation. And you should look at a person in totality. I might have come across harsh when it comes to these aspects of it, but you see, there is this one very rare quality he has, and you can check this, the graphics and all the videos are there. You see him celebrate other people's success. That's very rare in today's times. You see anyone and he's so happy and he's jubilant, he punches in the air, and he's so congratulatory and all that. So I think as far as his dedication to the cricket and the nation, I mean, that is unquestionable. But just that he never had someone like, Dravid is that kind of man who can sometimes tell him, dude, you're human too, and this is where you go wrong, right? So I don't see that happening. I mean, that is very clear. The guy is very, very committed, and nobody has a right to say that cast aspersions on that. But yeah, this issue could have been definitely handled in a better manner. But it's not that like there is just one side is a victim and the other is not. I mean, both got it wrong to varying degrees. They're human at the end of the day.
Just to make a light topic more serious, you mentioned that he's got a history of doing this, right? And I think, at least on social media, it seems like his audiences are getting a little more disillusioned with his, let's say, hubris in terms of his abilities. Do you see that happening?
Is it about like his latest tweets and all? Are we going there? Like his worldview and all?
His worldview aside, just on the field. Let's take his on the field aspect.
Yeah, you see, the problem is that when you're very aggressive and perceived to be very arrogant about your thing, it's human nature. When you'll do good, people won't be able to say anything. They'll suck up with it, say, but you know what, he produces the results, he's a gem. And when you go a little down, and then they'll come for you, because you're not a Rohit Sharma or a Dravid who's quiet, or a Sachin, and they won't be that harsh because you've been humble about it, right? So that comes with the territory. I think, yeah, he can choose to be a little, he can borrow a little coolness from Rohit, and he doesn't need to always be into that aggro mode and like every time giving it back, and could put in more thought in what he's saying, because at the end of the day, it's a big position in India, right? I mean, cricket's a religion, so you are viewed as that, whether you don't like it or not. So he can be a little, he can calm down a little, and you can understand the hurt by sections of viewers, because it's the cricket captain of India they're looking at. I mean, tomorrow he won't be there, somebody else will be there, but you expect them to just kind of,
especially
not always be.
That it was Captain Cool who was his predecessor, so I think.
Yeah, of course, that makes the difference even more stark, right? So people are like, "What the hell's going on here?" Right? Why is the The aggression's great as a test captain, as I said. It's great on the field. It's great. But again, that same aggression is not something you needed in a shorter format, because that makes the players nervous, right? And that is one of the reasons why maybe he never tasted that kind of success. Again, it's not coming intentionally. He believes that if you look at it from a psychological perspective, he says, yeah, if I'm giving my 200%, the other person also has to. But you have to understand, everyone's not you. Right. So when you say that, you do that, and they're like, oh my God, what if I drop this catch? What's he going to do? What if I don't score? Right. And that is where you need cool, calm characters who, just put your hand around someone's shoulder and say, that's okay, you dropped it, and next match I'll back you. That is also something, as a cricket lover, I always observed. He would just, like, person goes bad in 3-4 matches and drop like a potato. And he in his head is not thinking that. He thinks, okay, this is right for the country, I cannot afford it. But that's not how you generally associate great captains. I mean, if you've seen any of the former great captains, you look at MS Dhoni, I mean, you don't need to even go far away, one of the greatest white ball cricket captains in the history of the game. There was this very interesting thing Shane Watson said a couple of years back in a conference, post-match conference. He said, and that was an indirect dig at RCB where he was with Kohli. He said, this entire season, I had a very bad run of 5-6 matches. He said, had it happened with my former team, I would have been dropped long time ago. And he won a very, very scintillating, very close semi-final, and later went on to win the, I think, I'm not sure, was it the same thing? So that's the thing, right? It's fine. It's okay to not be the best in everything. You are the greatest batsman of this decade. You are a great test captain. You were an ordinary ODI and T20 captain. Pratham, why do his diehard fans get so enraged by saying this? We're not attacking him, God's sake.
Well, your pick for best captain across all formats. One.
No, I still think Kohli should, till his retirement, be India's test captain for the next 4 years. I think he easily has 4 years to give to Indian cricket. And for T20 and one days for the next 2-3 years, it has to be Rohit. So.
Okay, so you will pick two.
And that's how it is right now. So BCCI there has already made that decision. I'm very happy. And of course, being a Dravid fan, I mean, Dravid's there, and I'm back to my 90s kid. Now everything feels nice. You don't even need to analyze the game. He's there. He's just taking care. So it's a great moment.
Yeah. Just on a tangential note, I actually was reading this tweet which made a lot of sense to me yesterday, and I hadn't thought of it. In the 90s, we used to watch cricket with the intention of watching people like Dravid and Sachin bat. And right now, the Indian polity is sitting in front of the television sets to watch Bumrah and Siraj bowl. So that's quite the shift, no? Having a...
It is. It's such a great feeling, It's like tears of joy. Like a 90s kid, you're always getting mocked by other nations ki kya tumhare 100-110 kilometer ke fast bowler hai, they are like our spinners. And today to have not one, not two, not three, 5 world-class fast bowlers in the form of Ishant Sharma, Umesh Yadav, Mohammad Siraj, Mohammad Shami, and Jasprit Bumrah, who are wreaking havoc across the globe, whether there's pitches of Australia, England, South Africa, and we are taking like 20 wickets in a test match, and we're winning test matches abroad. Of course, a large credit to that goes to Shastri Kohli, the way they shaped up the mindset, the way they had these 5 people in this. It's a great feeling to see that. Yeah, definitely. I mean, India, a powerhouse in fast bowling. If some 90s kid had gone to coma and woken up now, he wouldn't believe it, that this is happening. So yeah, that's a great change.
Well, to bring up nostalgia, Rhodes and Ricky Ponting's fielding was matched by Yuvraj Singh and Mohammad Kaif's fielding at that time. We don't seem to have that sort of fielding anymore, though, Baki hai.
No. Obviously, now fielding is improved, and everyone does good. The fielding is good, and it's no longer horrible, especially the subcontinent players. But yeah, this is a great feeling to have 5 world-class fast bowlers who are going to be there at least for the next 3-4 years. So it's a great feeling.
Yes. All right, I'm going to let you go now, Khalid, and thank you so much for making the time for a Questioning Minds today, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. All the best, Sagarika. All the best for your show.
Thank you, Khalid.